Hey everybody, thanks for being here. We'll give it a few minutes as usual just to let others join us. Hello, those who just joined us, welcome. We're just waiting just a few minutes to kick it off. We're going to give people just a minute to jump in still. All right, we can go ahead and get started. If anyone else comes in, then they'll join us. No big deal. So for those that are new here and haven't met, my name is Brandy. I am the case manager at the Cohen Clinic and a licensed clinical social worker. We are the military programs with our partner agency, Alaska Behavioral Health. And within our program, we serve active duty service members, their family members, as well as veterans and their family members. We're outpatient, short term mental health therapy. And what we're bringing to you today for our series, it is coming close to an end. So I thank you all that have been here multiple times, or if you're brand new, I'm hoping that you'll attend the last couple. Today is going to be the topic of who is the imposter. We're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, where most of us many of us experience, but we rarely talk about openly. And sometimes we just don't even know the name to put to it. Um, so Lindsay, our amazing Lindsay here at our clinic, was the one that created the presentation today, though she is out sick. So in order to kind of stick to what we had planned, we have decided to just go ahead and I will present for her. So bear with me. You all should be able to see my screen, the nice big orange Who is the Imposter? You'll see again, it's by Lindsay Dawson. She's also one of our licensed clinical social workers here at the clinic. She is absolutely amazing and incredible. So, all the information that you're going to be receiving today is straight from her, and I know she put a lot of work and effort into it. So when we're talking about imposter syndrome, it's interesting or important to remember that despite accomplishments, degrees, promotions, or praise, uh, we can all typically still hear that small voice asking us, when are they going to figure out I don't belong here? When are they going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing? All right. And so if that sounds familiar to you, you're not alone. And I hope that you get something to take away from this today. There we go. All right, so what actually is imposter syndrome? So, imposter syndrome is when we doubt our accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud, even when there's clear evidence of our competence. So, even when we've done all the things and we've worked hard and we've completed all the degree programs or the certifications, and all the evidence shows that we know what we're doing, there's still that little feeling that waiting for the shoe to drop and thinking it's a matter of time before they catch on. Research suggests about 70% of people experience this at some point in their lives. It often affects high achievers, people who are capable, driven, successful, but who attribute their success to luck or timing or external factors instead of their own skill. So sometimes it was, oh, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, or I just happened to be able to pull that random fact out of my head. It was just luck. Never giving themselves credit for what they're actually capable of doing. So, what it feels like, what does it actually feel like to have imposter syndrome or to experience it? It's heavy, it's really heavy, and it's persistent. You're constantly hearing that voice over and over all day throughout the day, um, just telling you that they're going to catch on, that your skills are not actual skills, that they're just luck, and that you've just learned and figured out how to do it under the radar. Some of the common experiences are like constant self-doubt, fear of being found out, dismissing achievements, anxiety, perfectionism. It's not just occasional insecurity. It's a pattern of thinking that can impact performance, confidence, and well-being. So it's not, again, not just this one-time thing that you might feel coming up to a presentation that you're not super well informed on, but you're doing it and you're just doing it. It is that constant nagging feeling, the waiting for the shoe to drop and the absolute fear that you're going to be exposed. So why does it happen? Right? Why do we experience imposter syndrome? It could be a bunch of different things, right? It could be that there are personality traits, right? Some factors like perfectionism, neuroticism, or low self-efficacy. It could be things like cultural and systemic factors that also play a role, like competitive environments. There's early academic pressure. And leadership roles that can increase scrutiny and self-doubt. So it could start early in elementary school and, having that high performer, feeling that academic pressure all the way up through now being an adult and taking on this leadership role that now feels really heavy on your shoulders and you really feel like you're not worthy or you're not competent in doing the job. The more visible you come, the more vulnerable you feel, right? You get stuck in this loop of, you work hard to show that you know these things and to overcompensate, and then people start to notice because you're a hard worker and you do things really great. And then that becomes more visible and you become more vulnerable or feel more vulnerable. All right, so what are the signs that you might be experiencing things like imposter syndrome, right? You might have some thought patterns that look like, I don't deserve this success. I'm not as competent as people think. I just got lucky. Soon they'll find out I'm a fraud. Having these really kind of negative self-doubt thoughts about your competency really kind of identifies that imposter syndrome right out the gate. There's also some behavior cues. You're over preparing or overworking to prove yourself, avoiding new challenges for fear of failure. Maybe you're downplaying your achievements or brushing off compliments. Maybe you're feeling anxious when praised or recognized. Does anybody kind of feel like you're dancing around that sometimes when you're on the spot and people are like, great job? And you're like, thank you. And inside you're kind of screaming like, I just, I don't know. I don't know if they know that, I just read this and whatever it might be, but you have all of these thoughts that are really negative and downplaying exactly how hard you worked. And you're feeling anxious when praise recognized, comparing yourself constantly to others. Why can someone else do this, but I'm not doing it the same or as good or as well? Whatever that feeling might be. There might also be some emotional signals. There's chronic self-doubt, fear of being found out, shame when you make mistakes, feeling like you're faking it, even when you're succeeding. Sometimes it's really hard for us to take on and accept, you know what, I knocked it out of the park. I did a great job. Instead, we're thinking, oh man, I had to fake it like I knew what I was talking about. So some things too, to identify whether or not you're experiencing imposter syndrome is asking yourself reflection questions, right? What do I believe success should look like? Do I feel like I need to earn my place every day? How do I react when somebody compliments me? Do I feel uncomfortable asking for help or admitting I don't know something? All of these kinds of questions will help bring unconscious patterns into awareness. So by asking this, we're really digging in and reflecting on ourselves and trying to understand, and based on how you answer those questions, really is going to tell us, like, do I fall into these categories for imposter syndrome? Am I beating myself down? Do I have some low self-doubt? And am I, having some emotional or behavioral signals? So imposter syndrome doesn't look the same for everyone. And there's been multiple researchers out there that have identified there's 5 common types of imposter syndrome. And it's not uncommon to resonate with more than one. You don't have to fully, if you identify with any, you don't have to fully identify with just one. Sometimes it might fall across different ones depending on the situation. We'll look at the 5 different types before I jump into them individually. There's perfectionists, there's soloists, the expert, the natural genius, and the superhuman. But first, we'll look at perfectionists. So, a perfectionist sets really high goals for themselves. Anything less than 100% feels like a failure, right? They set unrealistic goals for themselves, and they may lack self-compassion for self, but has high self-compassion for others, right? We can see and we can encourage and we can, hype other people up, but sometimes we just can't do that for ourselves. One of the core beliefs that come with being a perfectionist is if I don't do it perfectly, then I failed. There is no, middle ground. It's all one way or the other. Typical behavior looks like setting impossibly high standards, hyper focusing on the flaws, again, not being able to accept any of the wins in the moment, only looking at the things that I feel like is a failure. And this makes us vulnerable. We have fear of mistakes. We might experience burnout because we're working extra hard trying to make sure that everything is extra perfect. And then we have a soloist. This individual will do things like attend meetings, but will typically lack engagement due to their imposter syndrome. They have input and they want to engage, but they don't. They believe success only counts if achieved alone, only if I can do it on my own. If I ask for help, I'm weak. Sometimes it's not that they don't want the help or that they think that they're better than anyone. It's more of a internal feeling of failure or weakness if I do reach out and take the help or ask for help. Typical behavior looks like working alone or resisting collaboration. Um, having that statement of, I just don't do groups. I don't work in groups, right? Groups is everyone else's fault when things don't go right. And sometimes that is a valid concern, but other times it's just that resistance because you feel like you have to be that soloist. Um, for vulnerability, it makes it, increases isolation and maybe overwhelm when you're taking on tasks that are bigger than one person. And then we have the expert. The expert often feels inadequate unless they know everything. One of the core beliefs is if I don't know everything, I'm incompetent. If I can't answer every single question that comes at me, then I didn't do a good job. Um, they may over prepare or avoid opportunities unless they feel fully knowledgeable. The vulnerability is the fear of being exposed as ignorant. I honestly felt some of this just today, right? Because I picked up this beautiful presentation that I know Lindsay put all this work and effort into, and Lindsay is absolutely brilliant. And so to try to sit here and not be Lindsay, but also deliver this to where it's effective and meaningful for everyone that attends, it's really difficult. And I had to kind of sit on that for a minute and think about, you know, if I can't answer all the questions, it's okay. I know how to find the answer. I know how to connect people with Lindsay or whomever might answer the question fully. And I did sit here and I over prepared and I read every note and I, typed in other notes and did all of the things I could possibly do to make myself feel a little bit more confident and a little bit more prepared. When ultimately I'm here, I'm doing the presentation, I know what I'm talking about for the most part. And then it was really hard to kind of shift that frame of thinking for myself. And then we have the natural genius. So the natural genius believes ability should come easily. Um, they think that needing effort means lack of talent. The core belief that comes with that is if I struggle, I must not be good enough. When effort is required, shame can surface, right? This type often avoids challenges that don't feel immediately natural. So if I try it right out the gate, I feel some type of way, I can't do it, or I think I can't do it, then I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to put myself up to it, or I'm not going to, try to volunteer for anything or, reach out just outside my reach. I'm not going to engage in any of that because I needed to stay right here in my comfort zone where I know that I've got it under control. Typical behaviors again expect success to come easily and avoids challenges. And then you're vulnerable to that shame when effort is required. Superhuman. So the superhuman feels they must excel in every single role, whether it's professional, personal, social, all of the above, just to feel worthy. Um, and all at the same time, right? You must be able to juggle all of the things being a spouse, a mother, a parent, a child yourself, or an aunt, an uncle, whatever that might be in your personal role. But then also being, your friends and making sure that everybody's getting together and staying in contact. But then also making sure that you're on top of all your work at work, and then some for some people. And to know that I'm being successful in all of those categories is the only way that I'll feel worthy and competent. So one of the core beliefs that goes with that is I must excel in all roles to be worthy. I must do it all and I must be good at it. The typical behaviors is that they're juggling multiple responsibilities and often neglect their self-care. Self-care is the first thing to go for lots of us, especially people in like the helping role, right? And so when you feel like you are one of the superhuman, or you feel like you need to be in that superhuman role within the imposter syndrome, sometimes it just makes it even more difficult to focus on ourselves and take care of ourselves. And then it frequently leads to things like chronic stress, self-neglect, exhaustion, burnout, all of those things. So if you want to know your type, I'll leave this up, give you all just a few minutes to look at it. If you wanted to drop it in the chat, you're absolutely more than welcome, but you do not have to. I know this is something that is, makes you feel vulnerable maybe. But the good news is that imposter syndrome is manageable. There are ways to manage it and overcome it and work with it. And we're going to talk about that as we go in. But if you wanted to, take a moment to look over these. It starts with recognizing it, not as a truth, but this is a pattern. This is something that we follow. The things that, we teach our very same things we teach our clients, right? We can overcome this and we can work on this and we can grow from this because it is a pattern. It's not the truth. It's not who you are. It's not everything. It's just these lies and negativity that your brain tells you sometimes. So look over the 5 prompts, see if any of these resonate with you. Maybe it's more than one. Like I said, you're more than welcome to share in the chat if you want to. Again, do not have to. So how do we manage it? Someone said superhuman and perfectionist. Vanessa, I agree. I feel like I kind of identify with those a little bit stronger myself. And maybe even sometimes depending on the kind of nature of what I'm doing, maybe even the expert, as I kind of talked about earlier today, like I need to know it all so I can present this effectively. And ultimately that's just not true. Um, Alexis, personally, I feel like I'm a mixture of perfectionist, expert, and superhuman. Exactly. Sounds like these ones are quite common in a lot of people. So how do we manage it when we're experiencing these different kinds of or different types of imposter syndrome? How are we going to manage this? So first, we can normalize it, right? Normalize failure. Mistakes are part of growth. It's not proof of inadequacy. If I miss a step or I don't explain something right or I can't answer a question, it doesn't mean that I've completely failed. It doesn't mean that I didn't know what I was talking about or that I'm inadequate. Really just means that I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm doing all of these kinds of things to, bring things to the community, but I'm also learning myself and making sure that I understand what I'm delivering as well. Reframe self-talk. So shifting from I'm a fraud to I'm learning and growing. Giving yourself that kind of grace and space to fall, but picking yourself up and moving forward. Accept praise. This one is probably one of my most difficult. Practice reviewing compliments and acknowledging achievements. How do you effectively say thank you without making it super awkward? Seek feedback. Constructive input helps separate feelings from facts, right? So going in and looking for that consultation or looking for the supervision or just feedback in general. Hey, how did that go for you? How do you think that I did? Is there something that I could have changed that I could have done better? I'm sending out at the end of this, everyone gets a feedback questionnaire at the end. I read every single one of those and I take those to whoever presented, or if it was myself that presented and I said, hey, here's some feedback that we got. You choose to take it how you will, but for me, I take it very personally, but not in a negative manner, but personally for growth. Recognize your value. Focus on what you bring that's uniquely human. Judgment, empathy, creativity, whatever it is that you bring to the table, recognize that. Say it to yourself. Remind yourself that you do have these qualities, these values, these really incredible things that you bring to the table. And we tend to forget because it tends to get covered up by these really difficult insecurities that we have and that we keep telling ourselves and this self-doubt. To reframe your thinking. Anybody that is, CBT certified or familiar, you know, You know what reframing, cognitive reframing, those kinds of things are. That's exactly what we're doing here for ourselves, right? We teach our clients these things all the time. And so now it's kind of time for us to put our money where our mouth is, right? We're telling people, identify this thought, and now let's work with it to find a more positive thought or a more realistic thought, even. Naming the feeling, labeling it as imposter syndrome, it helps externalize it, takes away that power. Challenge your inner critic. When you catch yourself thinking, I don't belong, challenge your inner critic and ask, what evidence do I have for that? Um, is this just my mind playing tricks on me? Is this me telling me something, my insecurity taking over? Um, what is the evidence? What is proof that that's true? Replace I got lucky with I worked hard. Acknowledge your effort, your persistence, your skill. Effort really matters. Sometimes it's not, I did such a great job and telling myself I did such a great job, but the fact of acknowledging that I spent a lot of time preparing for this and I worked really hard to, research this so that I could say it in a way that I understand or, whatever it makes sense to you and for what you're doing. Uh, Compliment yourself, tell yourself, remind yourself, I worked really hard for this and I deserve it. Track your wins, right? Keep a confidence journal, write down achievements, compliments, and moments of pride, and review it regularly, especially before big meetings, interviews, presentations. This builds evidence against self-doubt. Um, One thing that one of the gifts and stuff that I typically always give interns or when I'm teaching someone is to have a little book of sunshine, right? And so if you're in any kind of helping field, um, having that little book of sunshine where you write down your wins, right? These positive moments, these achievements, these compliments, these moments where you really were like, this is why I do this. This is why I am working so hard in this job, right? That little book that brings sunshine when you're having a hard day. Uh, have your own book of sunshine. So when you're going in right before you're presenting something or you're interviewing for this next level job that you really want, whatever it might be, read that journal. Remind yourself where is the good? What do I do right? How have I worked really hard to be this person or to accomplish this certification or whatever it might be? Something that reminds you and kind of takes away some of that self-doubt. Talk it out. Share with your trusted peers or mentors. You'll often find that they've felt or feel the same way. You're not the only one out there. Imposter syndrome, I know it says 70% earlier, but you know, I venture to say probably a lot more than that. And almost everyone's probably felt it at some time in their life. Um, I can tell you I feel it all the time in different ways on all different things. And sometimes that can be really difficult. Um, but finding other people that are also feeling the same way sometimes also kind of takes the power away from it, and it feels a little less overwhelming when you're not alone. Joining support groups or communities, especially helpful in high pressure fields like technology, academia, medicine, social work, those kinds of things. Finding others that are practicing in the same field as you and talking to them about, how they're feeling with imposter syndrome. Set realistic standards. So for here, we want to redefine success. Not everything needs to be perfect to be valuable. Not everything needs to be 100% to be great. Celebrate progress, not perfection. So focusing on that growth or that growth over flawless execution. I might bumble through some slides today, but you know what? I learned something today. I got to present again. I got to, answer questions, or I got to listen to other people's feedback. There was a lot I get to learn in all of these different kinds of things. Even when I don't flawlessly execute whatever it is that I'm trying to do. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself like a friend. Would you call your best friend a fraud for making a mistake? When you're telling yourself or, when you're feeling some type of way, ask yourself, what would I say to my best friend if they were feeling the same way? And try to take your own advice. Use affirmations. Try out something like I am learning, I am growing, and I'm worthy of success. I've worked hard to get here and I am worthy of feeling good and successful. Educate yourself. So learn about imposter syndrome. Understanding its psychology helps you to recognize it as a pattern and not a truth. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and all we do know is how we feel, right? And so if we take the time to sit down, we read about it, we learn a little bit more about it, it gives our brain and almost our heart to kind of give that ideation and accept that it's a pattern, right? It's not truth. It's not, I'm a terrible person or that I'm no good. This is just a pattern of thoughts that can be managed. Read stories of successful people who have experienced it. People like Maya Angelou, Albert Einstein, Sheryl Sandberg have all spoken about feeling imposter syndrome. And while we're kind of going through this, just kind of pop back to the other slide. If you all have any kind of affirmations that you really like or feel drawn to, or that you tell yourself or others, drop them in the chat. I love affirmations. So using cognitive tools, right? CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques can help rewire negative thought patterns. Again, we're kind of taking those thought patterns, recognizing them, identifying them, questioning them, looking for the evidence for or against, and then reframing those to have a more positive spin on that, and maybe even more truthful spin to those thoughts that are coming and taking over typically. Spending time on mindfulness and meditation. These help you observe the thoughts without judgment and potentially reduce the anxiety attached to them. The goal isn't to completely eliminate doubt, right? That's a big ask. Uh, but it's more to prevent it from running the show. We don't want it to take over. We don't want it to keep us from engaging in trying challenging things and learning new things. If we're not out there, continuing to reach ahead, then we're stunting our own growth. And that's, imposter syndrome really kind of plays a role in that. So if we can get out there and we don't always have to eliminate that doubt, but not let it take over and prohibit us from managing anything else. So shifting the perfectionist mindset. So kind of starting back at the top, going back to perfectionist. Um, Strategy, how can we shift that is set good enough goals, right? Practice delivering work at 90% and observe the outcome. See if it's just as desirable as if you would have worked harder. Maybe it'd be more desirable. It's not 100% that you were shooting for and that you really wanted, but you got 90%, and guess what? You got to have a little extra time with your family this weekend because you didn't spend all weekend preparing for it. A mantra that goes with that, done is better than perfect, right? As long as it's finished and it's meeting all the standards and all the points and it's good enough. Shifting the expert mindset. You want to embrace lifelong learning. Remind yourself that absolutely no one knows everything, right? Maybe you're applying for a job that you're not so sure that you're qualified for. You're qualified on paper, but maybe you're not so sure about is your experience, is your understanding, your ability, are they truly on par with what's needed? Um, but then sometimes it can be okay to be humble and say, you know what? Everyone doesn't know everything. There are things out there that even the most experienced person in that role doesn't know, and that's okay. I don't need to know all the answers to be valuable, to be a important person, to be valuable in the role that I'm hoping for, or whatever it might be. I can bring value to the table. Shifting the natural genius mindset, right? So we have this strategy. We want to reframe effort as strength. Remember, the natural genius really struggles with accepting that um, if I don't know how to do it naturally, then I'm weak or I'm a failure. So reframing that as, effort is a strength. I worked really hard. I tried really hard. And that was a really big deal for me. Track how persistence leads to growth. Keep track of it, write it down, journal about it, whatever it might be, and be able to visualize your growth and how much you learned, and understand that if I hadn't asked for help or I hadn't reached and pushed myself a little bit further, I would have lost all this potential for all of this growth that I brought to the table this time around. So a mantra that goes with that: struggle means I'm stretching my abilities, means I'm growing, it means I'm learning. Shifting the soloist mindset. So a strategy is asking for help once a day, even with the small things. It builds trust and it builds connection. It teaches ourselves that we can rely on other people, we can ask for help, and it's okay to be in need of help. Collaboration is a sign of strength. Telling ourselves over and over, I reached out, I asked for help. For some people, that's really hard. And so that is a sign that it's a strength of mine. Shifting the superhuman mindset. So prioritize and delegate. You're allowed to be excellent in some areas, but you don't have to be in all. I am enough even when I rest, right? Giving yourself that grace, that space, that time to rest and take care of yourself. And that in itself is a strength. That in itself is a skill that takes a lot of effort. So now we have an example of a soloist. So the soloist type of imposter is driven by the belief that asking for help or relying on others diminishes one's worth or competence, right? So people with this mindset often feel like they have to prove themselves by doing everything alone. Um, it might look like hyper independence, right? They prefer to work alone and avoid collaboration, even when it would be beneficial. It might look like reluctance to ask for help. It views seeking assistance as a sign of weakness or inadequacy, or internalized pressure. Believes success only counts if achieved without support. Discomfort with delegation. It struggles to trust others with tasks, fearing it reflects poorly on their own abilities. Overwhelm and burnout takes on too much, leading to exhaustion and stress. There's difficulty receiving feedback. It may interpret constructive input as criticism or confirmation of inadequacy. And it's not that they, don't want to learn or grow or receive feedback. It's just that, they've grown so long for working alone, and they're so worried about others finding out that they may or may not be an imposter, right? That it makes it really hard to take that feedback. They're overwhelming and burning themselves out. And it's not that they feel like they're better than anyone or they're too good for group collaboration. It's purely the absolute discomfort and the struggle and the fear associated to that makes people want to work alone as a soloist. So, how to shift that soloist mindset? Reframe help as a strength. Again, collaboration is a skill, not a flaw. Practice small asks. Start by requesting minor assistance to build comfort. Celebrate shared success. Recognize the value of teamwork and mutual support. Use affirmations. Try asking for help shows wisdom, not weakness. Again, affirmations can go across the board for pretty much any of them because we're working towards increasing that self-confidence and decreasing that self-doubt. So something other really cool that Lindsay kind of showed here is weekly confidence plan for the soloist type. This goes into daily, what are some things that I could do for myself? Different affirmations like asking for help shows wisdom, not weakness. Actions, identify one task this week where you could benefit from support and then write it down. On Tuesday, we're going to look at the mind micro ask challenge. Maybe we're going to ask for help with something small, like directions, feedback, a quick favor. Um, and then we're going to have reflection. Notice how to respond. Did it strengthen connection or not? On Wednesday, then we're going to start with the collaboration practice, right? We're slowly kind of increasing how much we're, engaging with others and asking for help. So Wednesday, we might invite someone to brainstorm or co-work with you, even if it's just 15 minutes. And we're going to really try for that mindset shift. We're going to focus on shared success, not having to prove yourself as worthy or good enough. On Thursday, that's feedback day, right? That is the day that we're going to ask for feedback on something that you're working on, right? You're going to show it to someone and say, "Hey, can you, tell me what's good, what could use a little adjustment, what could use some tweaking." I'd really love to have your feedback on that. And a tip for that is to frame it as what's one thing I could improve. That way, it keeps it constructive and it doesn't feel like someone is telling you your entire project is terrible. On Friday, celebrate shared wins. Have a reflection, write down one moment this week where collaboration actually helped, right? Find that growth in helping yourself accept and understand, you know what? I did have a win this moment when I was asking for help. Um, have an affirmation. I grow faster when I grow with others. I would have ultimately gotten to the same outcome, but I got there so much faster because I asked for help. And for the weekend, just recharge and reframe. Maybe you do a little bit of a journal or just some self-reflection. What did I learn about about myself this week? And then maybe read or listen to a story of someone else who overcame imposter syndrome. Another kind of idea or plan that you could implement is weekly confidence plans. Um, This one is specifically again for soloists, telling yourself and having that theme of collaboration is strength, not weakness. And it's daily, right? Checking these boxes daily or filling in the blanks daily. Target has some really cool ones. I don't know if any of you have ever kind of looked at some of their kind of affirmation and journals and whatnot. They have something very similar, and it prompts you to, write down a task that you could help with this week, or write down something good. It has all these really different cool prompts to help you manage imposter syndrome, to manage looking for some of the good in each day. Um, and the examples that she has here again is asking for help, inviting brainstorming. So the same thing that we looked at last on the last slide, but just kind of set up in a different way so that you can have a little checklist. Daily affirmations, these again are really important, reminding ourselves of the good. Sometimes we teach our clients all the time, it's really easy to see the bad in every single day. But it's actually kind of hard to sit and look for the good. And we have to really think about it and really try to dig for it. And so having some positive affirmation kind of sets the tone and starts encouraging our brains to start to see the good things and the positive things and to remind ourselves, I'm allowed to lean on others. Asking for help shows wisdom, not weakness. Shared success is real success. Feedback helps me grow stronger. I thrive in connection, not isolation. I am enough even when I rest. So now just kind of ask yourself, are you experiencing imposter syndrome, right? We had that kind of list of some, real intro questions there that you could ask yourself to understand you if you're experiencing imposter syndrome. And maybe you're already aware of this, or maybe this is brand new for you. So being able to label it takes away its power. Being able to put a name to it gives us a way to help us understand it and manage it and know where to start educating ourselves. And then finally, if you want to answer this in the chat, by all means. If not, kind of do some self-reflection. What will you do to kick the imposter inside of you? I'm that, again, that affirmation kind of girl. And so when I know that I'm doing something difficult, I will put a sticky note on my computer, or I'll read over again that little buck of sunshine right before I walk into a big meeting, or, remind myself all of these things that I've worked really hard on. And I don't have to own it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I showed up. I gave it my all. I did my best. Um, and I'm here and I'm present. So just kind of keeping that in mind for yourself. Does anybody have any thoughts of what you want to do to kick imposter inside you that you want to share? I know it's Monday and this is kind of like a topic of, being or feeling vulnerable. So by all means, no pressure. Here are just some of the kind of resources that Lindsay provided. And this is a little questionnaire that is online. I'll drop the link. Nope, I thought I was going to drop the link. Well, let me grab the link for you and I'll drop it in the chat. So if you want to, um, you can give it a go. So give me 1 second now. Maybe. Here we go. I'll drop this right here in the chat. So if you wanted to follow the link to, do the imposter syndrome personality quiz, it is there. Um, it's kind of cool. It's got some basic questions that you could fill in from, on a scale there from agree to disagree. And then at the end, it'll kind of give you some insight into the different types that you may identify with. So that's just what that looks like. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments, anything that I can help you with? Um, we're always here. You all have my email. You'll also receive a follow-up email that has a link, a survey in there. It is a short and quick one. Also kind of asked you what are some topics that you'd like to see next year's series. Definitely pop in there, drop some feedback. We're happy to take it. If you all have any clients, families, friends, anything that, is in need of some like mental health care, don't hesitate to use my email, reach out. Even if they're not military affiliated, I'm always happy to help make that connection to our partner agency, Alaska Behavioral Health, with all their different amazing programs as well. But otherwise, it was short and sweet today, so you have about 15 minutes back of your time today. But I'll stick around just in case. Awesome, Alexis. I'm so glad you had a lot of great takeaways. Thank you for sharing that. I was really excited to get to take Lindsay's presentation and learn from it today. So I learned a lot today as well. I'll stick around just in case anybody has any questions. Thanks, Alexis. There was a lot of great information. It sure was. This is a topic that we could probably just go on all day. Awesome, Mark. I will absolutely grab that link. Connect. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Cynthia. Thank you, Mark. I will pass the word on to Lindsay and let her know that you all really enjoyed her slides. She did a really great job. All right. Well, I will go ahead and close this meeting, but everyone has my email. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and either myself or I will connect you with Lindsay or someone that can answer any of the questions. So do not hesitate to ask anything that you need. You all have a great week. I hope your Monday starts the week off well. Bye.